Augusta here from the New Face of Finance. So, this is my pregnancy diary. As of today, I am 8 weeks pregnant. We have actually been trying for a baby for about 18 months before it happened. And it was quite frustrating because obviously we were trying, it wasn't working out. We'd gone to see both a private IVF clinic and spoken to the NHS about possibly using their facilities to facilitate a pregnancy. And then we got married in February of 2020. And not long after that, in March, the country started suffering from the COVID-19 crisis and we went into lockdown. During lockdown, a bunch of things happened. Obviously, although we spend a huge amount of time together, we spent even more time together. And as all my businesses were affected, it meant that, the pace of life changed completely. I wasn't having as many calls. I was a lot more relaxed. And my last period was April 3rd, around April 3rd, 2020. I always keep a close eye on my period because I'm super regular. And obviously, when you are trying for a baby, you are a lot more conscious of these things, a lot more conscious of your periods. And I've got pretty irregular cycles. So typically no more than 28 days. And the last few months has gone down 25, 26, sometimes 27 days between each cycle. So I think it was day 26, I was working out and it dawned on me that I hadn't had a period in a little while. After the workout, I looked at my calendar and I was on day 26, I think it was, and I thought, oh, it's probably going to come in a few days. So I went to bed, woke up the next day 27, no period. But, I thought I didn't want to get my hopes up because, as I say, typically it's there by day 28. So on day 28, still no period. And at that point, I started to get a little bit excited. On day 29, I took a pregnancy test and it was positive. So I told my husband, and I don't think he could believe it for a while because obviously we've been trying for some time. I think he was a bit like, yeah, okay, that's great. And, hopefully this is true. But no, we left it a couple of weeks. I told my mum, who obviously had known about our struggles and was really excited to hear the news. Week 6 of the pregnancy, I was on a call to a client and desperate to pee because well, I'll talk more about the symptoms later on. But I was on a call to a client and got up and I had blood streaming down my thighs. And I was talking to them about a residential mortgage, about an issue that I felt like was a bit of a non-issue, and this thing was going on, and I was trying to get them off the call so I could figure out what was going on. Eventually I got them off the call, and then I screamed down for my husband, Nicholas, oh my gosh, I thought I was losing a baby. So it was obviously in the middle of lockdown and this crisis was still quite rife. We got a taxi to the hospital and I waited in A&E. We were there, I think we must have arrived. I mean, this whole blood situation happened about 5:30 that day. And it was literally the day, according to the app, because I've downloaded an app for the pregnancy, it was the day that I became 6 weeks pregnant. And got to the hospital, had to stay obviously very calm and collected. We had masks and gloves on because obviously I don't know who's got what in the hospitals these days, and I was avoiding going to the hospital while all this COVID stuff was happening. So I tried to be calm and just explain that, I'm 6 weeks pregnant and there's blood and I'm really worried. I was fortunate actually because I'd not really been to the hospital in Margate before. Growing up in London, my GP's registered in London. But the doctor and nurse who dealt with my case were just so lovely, so supportive. I was obviously quite distressed about the whole situation and the possibility of losing the baby. And the doctor checked my vitals, blood pressure was fine and all that. And she took a urine sample, tested it, and I was still showing very high levels of the pregnancy hormone. Is it HCG or HGC or something? And then they were just asking me about like what was the blood coming, and it was coming quite thick, to be honest. It was like first day of a period kind of blood. But she's like, was there any clumps in it? I was like, no clumps. It's quite, it's still like reddish, quite light, but it felt like it felt heavier than it should have been. So what they did was book me in the next day for a scan at the early pregnancy unit. Spoke to them about what had happened, and they did a scan. Now, thing is, when the baby's like 6 weeks, it's like super tiny. It's like, I think it's like, it's really small, like smaller than a raspberry, probably half the size of that. And so it's really hard to see what's going on. I mean, I'm not a skinny girl at all. So, there's a little bit of fat around my stomach already. And so they could really see what was going on. And so they had to do like an internal examination instead of doing a scan on my belly. And they saw that there were signs definitely of early pregnancy. And they noticed that there was a little bleed around where the sac that had the baby in it was attaching to the lining of the womb. And it was a clear bleed on the scan. And so they said, okay, look, we're going to keep an eye on this, come back next week and let's see how things are. So that week, I was bleeding, but not massively. It really just kind of calmed down. It was trickling. It was very light. It was in the, whenever I peed, there was a bit of blood, not always, but sometimes. And obviously I'm peeing quite a lot because for some reason when you're pregnant, and again, we'll talk about the symptoms in a bit, you're peeing quite a lot. And so there was blood there, but not masses. And so week 7, I went back to the hospital to speak to them, and they did another scan. And in fact, gave me a picture this time. You can see the little blob, just a little island, and it's just a little island there. And they said, look, everything seems fine. I always thought implementation bleeding, which they described it as, was something that happened, around the time of your missed period, but actually it could happen in week 5 and week 6, and that's what the nurse described it as. Said, look, not to worry. It seemed like it was progressing well. They wouldn't really be able to say anything else now to the 12-week scan. And so I said, look, we're going to discharge you. Just kind of take care of yourself, take it easy. And that was that. So in terms of the symptoms of pregnancy, obviously every woman's going to have a different experience with pregnancy. But I feel like I've really gone through a lot of the symptoms so far. This is week 8. I've literally been so sick and so tired, like literally. And I know that's like a term, but I think that's the first times that I'm using the terms sick and tired and literally meaning it. Constant nausea. I'm not actually thrown up, but I feel like I'm constantly about to throw up. And I feel so tired all the time. I mean, it comes and it goes. Sometimes I'm okay, I've got quite a lot of strength. And then at some days like today where I'm just so exhausted, I can't keep my eyes open. Like, I got up at 7, by 10:30, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can barely stay awake. Tried to do a workout, yawning all the way through the workout. I could barely move my limbs, felt so tired. It's mad, like how much energy this, a baby takes out of you. When you've got one incubating inside of you. The nausea, lots of stuff brings it on. Like I can smell everything. Like, I've been spending quite a lot of time in my bedroom, can't lie. A, because I'm always tired, feeling crap. Luckily, we've got an ensuite, so I haven't got to go too far for a bathroom. But every time I walk out, I don't know what I'm going to smell. And sometimes that smell triggers so much. So my husband at the moment has read somewhere that onions is a really good virus killer. I mean, I'd heard this somewhere else. So he's chopping quite a lot of onions, and so I'll walk out sometimes and I can smell these onions and I just want to throw up. The other day he went on a massive cleaning spree, sprayed a few surfaces with bleach, came out gagging. That was the closest I came to actually physically throwing up. I was just like sitting in the bedroom, and someone across the road or in another house, because you know, this side we don't actually have direct neighbours, there's a bit of an alleyway, and then like a block, and I could smell cigarette smoke, and I was just feeling rough as hell. Like, I feel like I could smell stuff for miles, and it's like so frustrating. My breasts are a lot more tender than they've ever been. I've got a zit, a little spot there. I barely ever get spots, but there you go. Affects the skin. Fortunately, I mean, my mum, who sees me quite a lot without makeup, we have like weekly Zoom calls after Zuma mass, and she's always like, "Oh my god, your skin looks lovely, it's glowing." Obviously it looks good now with the video, but even without a bit of makeup, apparently the skin is glowing. I think it's a bit early for this glow, and if I is glowing, it doesn't reflect how I feel inside. I feel hungry quite a lot, and I was really trying not to put on a lot of weight too quickly. But you know, thing is, when I wasn't pregnant and I was hungry, I could ignore it. I used to fast like 12 hours a day. But if I ignore the hunger right now, I just end up feeling even more sick, and then I'm unable to do things. So when I feel hungry, I have a drink or I actually eat something, because it's just not worth it. And I've just had to get over the vanity of putting on weight or not putting on weight, and it's something I have to deal with after baby gets here, because I just kind of need to get going. Like, there's so much to do. And so I need to just crack on and do those things. And so I can't be feeling sick and lying down if it's just going to be cured by a quick meal. Eating little and often, and most things I'm feeling quite fussy about the kinds of things that I can eat. I want a nice warm cooked meal every day, and I'm really into my cereal at the moment. A bit of ice cream from time to time. I'm a lot more into fruit than ever, because I've been definitely more of a vegetable girl. I like my peas, I like my sweet corn, I like my kale. And everyone gives kale a hard time. A lot of people give kale a hard time, but I love a bit of kale. But now I've gotten really massively into the fruits. I'm eating quite a lot of banana and oranges, which is quite nice as well. Cramping, a lot of cramps, and you know, it's not worrying, but especially in the early weeks there was a lot of cramping, and it comes from time to time. But I'd say I don't suffer cramps that much. Really, my biggest two symptoms is the sickness, is the nausea and the exhaustion. Those are my two biggest things, and there'll be brief moments during the day, throughout the day, where I'm not feeling either of those two things, and it's great and I can crack on, but it never lasts very long. In terms of my daily activities, prior to getting pregnant, I'd already decided that I was going to do less. I wanted to be more efficient, and I felt like for the longest time before lockdown, I was a bit of a busy fool. And so I've been doing a lot less daily activities, and I'm actually planning to stay that way, like, because I feel like we've got some really good systems in place, and if we just follow through those systems, stuff will get done. We're super productive without feeling overworked, and I can't be overworked for the sake of my health and a baby's health. So I'm still exercising every day. One of my goals during lockdown was to have time to exercise every day and have time to cook a meal every day. In the last 60 days, I probably missed 2 days of exercise, which is really good for me. Just a quick low impact, high intensity training I like to do, 30 minutes every day. And my body's used to that, and I can manage it even when I'm feeling tired. But I'm struggling with the cooking. Like, I've been really struggling because it's just the smells and the energy, you know. And Nick's been amazing, so he's just taking over. And that gap, he didn't even like complain about it, just slid in. So I'm so grateful that we've got this massively egalitarian relationship where he's so supportive and just fills in when I can't. So we've been having cooked healthy meals, managed to stay away from takeaways. So really pleased and happy about that. And so yeah, now we progress. I guess the next time that I'll be sitting in front of you like this will probably be at the 12-week scan after 3 months, because we're going to the second trimester then. And I'll update you on all the changes and things that have happened in that time. See you next time.